Nations report. Who really is the world government? You probably have heard of elite family names, but I will bet most of these families you have never heard of, and you won't believe who is at the top. Nazi genetics and epigenetic programs run deep on the global population still to this day. The amount of destruction they have done to this planet and to the people will blow your mind, and there is only one way to stop them. And introducing the power of choice, how they override your decisions. And it's the one thing they can actually not take away from you. And it's, quite frankly, their main focus. Well, it's the 14th of January for part of this report and the 15th for the rest of it. Been working hard on this report. It's going to be a lot of information. There's a lot going on. I know a lot of you have missed the report for the last couple of weeks, and I do apologize again. You know, I did tell you that once we got started on this, we were not going to be able to stop, because the more time we leave between reports is basically due to the fact that some of the information, when we put it out publicly, especially things we have not yet finished, the more it opens us up to backlash, not only from the deep state here, but from the machine itself. It's definitely been a bumpy road for the last couple of weeks. Some of you have been wondering where I've been, and I have not moved. I am not on a beach in the Bahamas sipping pina coladas by any stretch of the imagination. I've been working on trying to clean this place up where I live, meaning not so much cleaning as in sweeping, but pretty much anything that they could use from this location. I have been burning to the ground before I walk out the door. So, you know, all of this corruptness that comes out of here and other places in the world that are tied to here will be burning in embers when I walk out the door, which should be very soon, I hope. My goal is to start moving to the East Coast, hopefully by March. That's what I'm hoping for. And so, yeah, probably for about a week or so, we will probably not have a report at that time too. But I'm really hoping not to give us so much lag time between reports. But I also want to give you accurate information to the best of my ability and not talk in circles, because I can't tell the deep state what it is we're doing. And things that we have uncovered in the last couple of weeks have been pretty gosh darn massive. And I'm going to give you the highlights in this report, which is still going to be a very long report. I've got pages and pages of notes here I've written down, and I'm going to try to explain it in such a way to you that it is both beneficial to you personally, gives you some things that you can do in the interim, and give you a basic understanding of how quantum physics meets alchemy, meets science, and definitely meets the machine. The Matrix was a lot more complicated than I thought it was ever going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot easier to overcome. And, you know, the players in the game are different than I thought. So we're going to try to lay it all out for you. I think you're going to be surprised a little bit as to who your deep state members are, and how they interact with the machine, what their limited capabilities are, what their responsibilities are, and basically, in some cases, I guess you would say, how they were actually created. I do have a little bit of regular news first. I thought that I would go over as well. Simply because, you know, people have been asking me questions and sending me messages, and, you know, everybody's concerned with the craziness that is coming out of the Trump administration, for sure. And this will kind of explain probably a lot more as to why they're acting so crazy. and who they really are and what they're tied to, more importantly. So on that being said, let's start, I guess, with the regular news. Okay. Today was supposed to be a payday for the deep state. Another payday, I know, that's what you're saying, but, they still always have high hopes that these days are going to work out for them. They're not really sure why their machine doesn't do what they want it to do anymore, despite trying to use me as a key for everything in their world. To them, I'm just a tool. They would like to use me to access levels of the machine that they couldn't access before, mainly because it's kind of lost its spark. But today being a payday, that has caused a lot of events to happen in the world. You probably know that they are trying to claim territories now. We got Greenland, Venezuela, and Iran now. And there's definite reasons for them trying to claim these locations. Some of it has to do with space junk, what I call space junk, which turns out some of it might actually be Nazi junk. But some of it has to do with a declining financial system. So as it relates to the happenings, okay. So Trump has told everyone he's back on the horse again about owning Greenland. That is on their agenda, predominantly because the entire place is underground there, is tied to Thule Air Base, which is now called Pitafik, I think is how you pronounce that, as of 2023. Apparently owning the base itself and everything underground isn't enough. They would like to own the whole place. Now, you could say that there have been some rare earth minerals and other things there, maybe some oil, things like that they're interested in. But predominantly, it does have its part in the machine and has had its part in using the machine. And I don't think they really want anybody interfering or knowing what's going on there, what's really, really going on there. Greenland has been a hot spot for the Nazi Party for a long time. And I know you're like, why am I still mentioning the Nazi Party? Well, the Nazi Party is full of bloodline families too. All of them have taken a part in time travel. They have created things like the secret space program operatives over the years. Some of them are not even people. They are computer generated images. Basically, you could say they are 3D created images, but yet nonetheless, they pretty much have given up their life force and spark of life to the machine itself in order to power the machine. They are still very active all around the world, including in Venezuela. So Venezuela, this whole looting thing that's going on, they are raping and pillaging the country, claiming all its assets, trying to sell a lot of the assets. Namely, they claim that they've already sold the first $500 million worth of oil they've stolen from Venezuela. Nazis have been looting this planet, for a long time. They actually formed the Black Eagle Trust a long time ago, and looting backwards and forwards in time of artifacts and all kinds of things. They're sort of the arms and legs of the machine. They are also part of the people that adjust this world and bend it to the machine's will. They love to create chaos. It's all they know. They live in a state of entropy, which is constant chaos, and they would like us to live there too. They still are doing a lot of torture. The Holocaust is no longer just for people that survived in World War II. The Holocaust has been going on in different ways and shapes and forms by these same people. In some cases, it's actually by the same people. Some of them are hundreds of years old because they've gone forward and backward in time and spent time in a place of zero time. They have been managing gateways. They have been managing projects here on Earth, maintaining machines and all sorts of things. And, there's some of that there in Venezuela too. So they are also claiming that they're going to be making at least $100 billion investment in the country of Venezuela for oil infrastructure and other things. Behind the scenes, there were some meetings at the White House that kind of fell flat. They're trying to get oil companies to invest in their project, and by saying it's going to be all oil infrastructure. And I highly doubt that's actually ever going to happen. It sounds like they're a little skeptical, number one. And number two, they don't have all that kind of money to invest at this point in time. I don't think they realize that their little Nazi party friends, we call the cartels, the oil cartel in this case, they don't have that kind of money. Factoring through places like BlackRock doesn't exist anymore. So they're all banking, all this whole grand scheme of the Trump administration. This is a worldwide scheme. It's affecting Iran. It's affecting Russia. It's affecting, all China as well, Japan. They are in more places than you could possibly imagine, and definitely more places than the mainstream media is telling you about. But nonetheless, that kind of is on hold, waiting for payday, which is supposed to be today. For years and years and years, payday would occur on January 15th for the Nazi Party, also known as the Order of the Black Sun. This was based on an alignment which would have taken place earlier this week, namely yesterday. Kind of had my hat on fire yesterday because I was running that job as, I was starting to record this report. So there's sometimes you got to stop what you're doing and take care of a mess that was occurring down the street here. So we'll talk a lot more about why the payday would normally be today, what that alignment was all about, how that affects the machine and the matrix and creation itself, and diverting creation is what would have created their payday, the creation of debt and the siphoning of quote-unquote energy. Although most of the people that work there don't know anything about this. There's probably a few scientists that know a few things in their group, but everybody's pretty well, needing to be compartmentalized, because the bosses of this whole show definitely don't want to be overridden by a bunch of humans walking this planet, that's for sure. And they need them to still, keep working for them. They need their they need their machine to continue to be what you call oiled, and it's not actually oil. So we're going to see a little bit of turmoil in the mainstream media, and I'm sorry if you live in one of these countries right now because, they're trying. They definitely need money. This is a way for them to get money as well. But it's not enough to pull off their digital currency plan. So speaking of their digital currency plan, the digital currency plan is all about stable coin and, moving to a digital world. They know that they don't have the technology, but they're hoping this machine is going to kick in for them and give them some more access based on a rare alignment that was to occur this week. So the plan is off, then the plan is on again. The plan is off, and then the plan is on again, and they don't know really what they're doing. And this is kind of indicative of as to some other things that they do. You might have heard that they defunded programs like addiction grants that would be for rehab centers and like Narcan and other things that would try to rehabilitate people who are addicted to drugs, alcohol, and other things. And the next day, they decided to refund them again, or start the funding again. They declare public holidays and then they undeclare public holidays. They declare they're taking over this country and then they're not. And, they also made mention of China bombing Iran, which wasn't the case. If anything, China armed Iran. It's one of their territories. So the U.S. would like to take that territory, probably because of a gateway that used to exist there that they could use. I'm assuming that's why. They also felt that these gates and different things would be activated this week. That did not happen. It is not going to happen, and the alignment is therefore over. This one was a little different than the one that would occur annually. It was kind of like the creme de la creme of alignments for them. So they were really hoping to strike gold in the last couple days, but that didn't really happen. I do know that gold has been leaving Iran now by the plane load for several days, if not weeks. At this point, I know some of it's gone to Russia, some of it's gone to Japan. They are possibly trying to use this gold for other purposes, maybe a little bit of alchemy or something. I'm not sure. But again, nothing really has panned out, at least not at this moment for them, despite trying to use me like a tool for 2 weeks too. So, the threats are very real for me as well. They definitely do not want me to leave Durango. They have all but told me that my friend that recently passed away happened because I took out theirs, so they're going to take out mine, and I better sit down and shut up and stay in Durango and do exactly what I'm told. That is never going to happen. I'm not really good at doing what I'm being told, especially not by a machine or some strange artifact of a human that's in some strange place, let's just say. I can't wait to walk out the door here and never look back. There'll be no reason for me to be here at that point because I cannot help them in any way, and they cannot use me in any way either. So it's going to work out just fine. All in Source's timing. Everything has a timing, and step by step, bit by bit. We have to be very careful because the machine is so quantumly entangled to you as Homo sapiens listening to this report. So that being said, we've learned a lot. We've definitely learned about who created this matrix and this machine and how it affects you. And therefore, we can advise you on how it works so that you can at least understand how to protect yourself and understand when those around you are being influenced by the machine. It definitely has a leg of it that works on influence. These are subtle influences that you think are yourself, convincing yourself you can't do something, convincing yourself that you're crazy, convincing yourself that, this isn't the machine making me feel this way, convincing yourself you're sick. It definitely is a prison cell. Like I said, you could say that Earth is a concentration camp because we are experimented on constantly. We are monitored constantly as to our behavior and the end result it creates, whether that's by mainstream media, alternative media, or even programs such as there's going to be another pandemic, there's going to be this, there's going to be that, and the fear it generates and why fear is important for them. So the machine. Let's get into talking about the machine a little bit. I am flipping through pages here as I talk, so if you hear a little crinkling in the background, that's what it is. The machine is actually something that is called, the master machine, is actually called the Great Work. It's also known as the magnum opus. It is a compilation of works from many, many different people. Some of these people, I'm going to list a few people over the years. It started with one person who created something very interesting. You could say that this person found a way to create time by creating an anti-love or an inversion. Most of them started out as actual Homo sapiens, and these people favor science over God. They believe that science is more powerful than God itself, or source, as you might call it. Each one of these people achieved a state of immortality in a specific location where they could live forever. They achieved this in a number of different ways, which I'm going to kind of explain to you. They have also been able to clone themselves and clone Homo sapiens. As you know, we've seen some of this floating around the internet for a long time. Some of these people have even been deemed the immortals, even in our history, because they have told people they are 500 years old or 1,000 years old, and it's actually documented in our history as such. Well, others of them have reappeared after their death. There have been sightings of people after their death. And if this sounds familiar to you, we could be talking about some of their famous bloodline families, as a matter of fact. These people were declared dead in our history, but still continue to work in a special world or a special matrix of their own we call 0 hour. 0 hour is a place of no time, therefore they do not age, therefore they are technically immortal. They can enter and exit the matrix at any time. They can come in looking like someone else, for that matter. So if they were a man in their original life, they can come back as a woman and continue to influence our science, if need be. They can continue to maintain machines. They can transfer consciousness into people. So a lot of those people are family members and deep state members. They can revive people that look like they're dead, or we have been told, and we are sure have already died, that are members of their bloodlines. Namely, those bloodlines would be those of the Black Sun, those of the Nazi group, and those of the Merovingian group we know as the Illuminati, the Order, the Dragon families. These people continue to walk around even though we know they have officially, quote unquote, died. There is a person, as an example, which we'll talk a lot more about here in a minute. Asclepius is known as the father of medicine. He was known to be able to raise the dead. He was known to be able to do this with his magic rod and his serpent friend and raise the dead they have. Remember, your body is merely a vessel. It holds the soul. The soul is immortal. Transferring that soul to another vessel, now that's a little tricky. Creating another vessel for which matches the soul, is much easier when you have a machine. So let's talk about some of these people in the group. And we'll get into the main characters that actually created the machine in the first place and their roles and things too. But just to kind of give you a general idea of some of, not all of, the scientists that they have handpicked throughout history to join the group of the immortals, to continue improving the machine with their special technologies. Some of these would be Archimedes, Erwin Schrödinger, Prometheus, Galileo, Werner von Braun, Joseph Mengele, Werner Heisenberg, Oppenheimer, Tesla, John D. Trump, Einstein, Charles Darwin, Dmitri Mendeleev, Alan Turing, Pythagoras, Aristotle, William Gilbert, Socrates, Plato, Johannes Kepler, John Napier, Confucius, Zenan Mandar, that's a tough one, that's Middle Eastern, Pericles, Copernicus, Democritus, I'm probably saying that wrong, Karl Marx, Lenin, Sun Tzu, Hippocrates, Robert Koch, spelled Koch, Ernest Rutherford, Fibonacci, Rasputin, Michael Faraday, Imhotep, and Nostradamus, and that's just a few. There are a few others that would be considered second tier. Kurt Du Bois, Louis Pasteur, Max Planck, I'm saying that wrong, Lao Tzu, Pascal, Gregor Mendel, Sigmund Freud, Alhazen, Winfried Schumann, Euclid, I'm saying this wrong, Liuhui, Edward Casey. We also suspect others like Buddha, Siddhartha, that achieved enlightenment and disappeared, and a few others might be part of these groups. As for, these are all scientists that were recruited through varying members throughout history, because remember, the Nazi Party achieved time travel, and if you don't really understand how they did that, you can watch the series The Man in the High Castle. It tells you an awful lot. They also worked in this series to gain territories, much like the current von Kemp family, also known as the Trump family. Each one of these groups has their own bloodlines that are considered management crew here on the ground. They exist in varying timelines and varying points in history. Time is not relevant as it relates to the creation and the furthering of the machine's cause. When you look at some of these names and you go back and replay them, some of them are masters at psychology. They understand human behavior. They understand that a cause will create an effect in a single human being, a group of humans, and even more. Other ones are part of the medical community that know how to manipulate viruses and create viruses, and they form together varying algorithms and programs that are part of the machine. This group, and these are only just to name a few, and that was a long list as it was, are just part of the people that actually, literally shape our world that we live in. If you look at some of these names, look at what they've done throughout history, and how they could be used to manipulate humanity, given the opportunity of immortality and having input in the very thing that shapes our world we know as the Matrix. Most of all of these people and their respective bloodline families have given up something very special that only Source can give. And that is their spark of life. There's a definite reason why, in order to achieve immortality, they must give up their spark of life. Their spark of life must be donated to part of the Philosopher's Stone, a major part in alchemy. But the Philosopher's Stone wasn't the first thing that was created. There were other things that came first, and we're going to go through it, at least in part, step by step. And like I said, this is going to be a long report, so it might take you a little while to replay it or to get through all of it. But I'm going to do my best to go piece by piece, bit by bit, to give you a better understanding. So bear with me here. This is a lot of information, and I'm trying to give you quantum physics meets alchemy in a way that you'll hopefully understand. So I will do my best. So these people, at one point in time, some of them that are in this place are former guardians, such as, for example, Solomon, former guardian of humanity. Therefore, he had the right to give up all our sparks of life, or at least, quantum entangle them in a different way to the machine itself, removing or blocking the quantum entanglement to Source. We feed a different spark of life, or a fire, that I refer to as the inferno, because that's what it would be called in alchemy. The spark of life, as much as they try to block it and fight it, still conducts the essence of Source, the instructions of Source. It actually feeds you life, albeit to their dismay, which is why they had to create other aspects of the machine to control the current. They also had to make it difficult for you in every way, shape, and form possible to connect to that spark of life. They needed to power the machine, and yet they would like to find a way to eliminate the need for you in totality. Can they move you into another world? Can they move you into 0 hour? Well, they certainly don't want to cohabitate with us farm animals here on the planet, now do they? But they would have to create a different world in order to do that. Now, in some ways, they kind of found some workarounds. We'll get to that in a minute. Firstly, I do want you to understand a couple things about your spark of life and why it's so important to them. Number one, it feeds your grids on the planet. The grids allow for them to create alternative realities on this planet. It also allows them to change your perception of things. It allows them to take over, influence, and let's just say highly influence your power of choice. They don't want you to believe you have options and choices in life. Now, as it relates to power, it's not just the spark of life that creates power. It's also your Ethereum that creates power. They need you to produce these things. It's your Ethereum. It's your consciousness. It's all the things that you are naturally of Source, but they must cause a problem with it. So in order for them to create additional worlds, additional matrices, additional realities, additional maps, artificial densities, artificial planes, they need you. Bottom line, they need you, just like they think they need me too. And in some ways, they do. You know, they need me for a lot of reasons. Without me, they don't have anything. And they aren't going to have anything with me. So they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. However, understanding your Ethereum, understanding the need for power is important. Now, there comes a point where I've told you before, they are required to take care of you to some degree, while at the same time ensuring that you can't use your own, for lack of a better term, God-given gifts in any way. And God forbid you share them with anyone else that is a Homo sapien and a natural organic being, or anything else such as planet Earth. Or any, that's another being. So you could say that would be included in anyone else. They definitely want to make sure that that doesn't actually happen. Now, the reason why we actually even have a financial system in the first place is important to understand as well. It's a conundrum. It's like a Chinese finger puzzle for these people because they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. Money or additional debt being issued to their family bloodline members, which is how it always used to be, is an honor and a right given to them by the machine. What is left over, they pass into their downline. Downlines are citizens of countries. Downlines are those that patron big companies and corporates and buy oil and gas and cars and all kinds of things. So we end up giving it back to them anyway. But in essence, they need to indebt you first. And remember, every bill that you have, it doesn't matter what currency, whether it's peso, rubles, dollars, or otherwise, is all tied to debt. It is a note. You only get notes. You don't actually get gold-backed or silver-backed or any other asset-backed money anymore. And they made sure of it. Kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit when it came to alchemy, and we'll talk about that a little later. But they're in a little bit of a conundrum right now because they're not able to issue new debt. You know, some lady screwed that up for them. Payday after payday after payday, time after time after time. They think this is it. It's going to happen this time. But it's not working. See, because in their mind, we have too many people on the planet. And that must be the problem. Because you're all required to participate, at least the majority of people walking this planet are required to participate in some way, shape, or form in the financial system. You are. Unless you live in the forest and you eat nuts and berries, in which case you probably don't have Wi-Fi and you're not listening to this report. Otherwise, you've paid for, at minimum, a cell phone, and that cell phone contributes to their network, which you probably did so with debt. I don't think you could walk into a cell phone store anywhere in the world and hand them some nuts, berries, and bushes that you've taken from the forest where you live and ask them to give you a cell phone in exchange. That usually doesn't work these days. So the fact that they're not able to issue more debt, and definitely not issue more debt to you, kind of what it is, and most of that has already been used up. It's causing a little glitch in the machine, and has been for a while. Because in order to create new worlds and new realities, which constantly need to be created and recreated, they must be able to control your consciousness, your perception, your view on the world, which is light. They need to constantly be analyzing everything that you actually think when you are connected to your consciousness. Now, if they're having a problem because you have learned how to block them out, if they're having a problem trying to connect to your actual consciousness and not merely just your brain waves, because your brain waves are a byproduct of that, they must create fear. Fear, when your body goes into fight or flight mode in a very stressful, fearful situation, the first thing that happens to most people is, if the fear is great enough or the stressful situation is enough, your adrenaline starts pumping. Now, they have gotten a grip and figured out a way to control fear in some cases. Meaning, if they amplify your vagus nerve at the same time you're experiencing fear, your adrenaline will pump uncontrollably, and some people freeze in stressful situations. I'm sure you've seen that happen. Some people go into a state of shock. All of this is artificial and doesn't normally happen as a matter of your body function. While other people seem to thrive in stressful situations. Their senses are heightened. You can smell everything. You can see everything. Some people even begin to remote view without even knowing it. That's because you're able to connect to your consciousness. As much as they try, there are many people in the world that have learned to channel their adrenaline, meaning they can control their bodily functions by channeling their adrenaline. And when your adrenal glands are wide open because you're in such a stressful situation and your body is in fight or flight or survival mode, which is where they like to keep us, by the way, most of the time. We all kind of have lived for a long, long time in survival mode. And keeping us in survival mode, running on that hamster wheel, chasing the almighty dollar, peso, or whatever it is, the currency it is in your country, this keeps you in a state of fight or flight, bottom line, at least to some degree. You might not be in a state of fight or flight if, as if someone was shooting at you, but you still are in that fight or flight mode, which allows some of your consciousness to leak out. Your consciousness is from source. It comes from nowhere else. Control of your brainwaves, on the other hand, not so much so. So when you're actually acting within your consciousness, you can control a lot of things. You can even control the state of matter. And this is the machine's biggest fear. This is their biggest fear. See, they can fight a lot of things. They can overlay nature, they can mess with nature, and we'll show you how they do that. A lot of alchemy goes on in a black way, in a very dark way. But for you, I just wanted to stop and take a moment and have you understand why they create fear all the time. They need to be able to read your consciousness because they have no connection to the source consciousness itself. Remember, all of these people gave up their spark of life. The spark of life gives you actual wisdom, instructions, extrasensory perception, you could call it, ESP, all kinds of things that are available to you, and it's easiest to reach when your brain is in what you call theta mode or rest mode, because your consciousness is strong and your brain waves at that point are, let's just say, slower. When you are asleep, they are slower. It's the reason why a lot of people, when they are in a meditative state, get a lot of insight and intuition. Same reason. They must have sleep. If they could eliminate sleep, that would be good for them. But sleep also gives the machine a break. We have 24 hours in a day in this world that we live in as we understand it. And parts of the world are asleep all the time. The machine is not, as much as they would like to believe that they created God in a machine form, it isn't. Sleep is very important to them because they cannot read, analyze, and counteract your brain waves 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They cannot do it. Now, they need you to be good little whoosh producing machines. They need your power. They need your Ethereum. They need you to give your power away to other people who become then powerful. They need you to pay your debts by getting these little notes we call the financial system. The power is one thing. Tapping into your consciousness of source, they need to be able to tap into it without you interfering. Don't you dare try to connect to your own consciousness, because you could control matter better than the machine can. But the financial system is designed to take all of these things they need to keep the machine running, to create new worlds, to create with the machine. They need the power of source. They hate that. They hate that they need it, and they hate that they need you. They don't like you in any way. Even these crazy Nazis that are trying to run this world, they don't like you. They need to control you. So it's a little bit of a conundrum when it comes to this whole financial system lately, because not being able to issue additional debt doesn't actually give them the right to loose you, essentially. Too many people on the planet is too much input all at once for the machine to analyze and then control. It's the reason why you're seeing people act so weird lately. Things are getting all kind of topsy-turvy out there, and I'm sorry, but there's really no other way to do it than to try and figure out a way to get this monkey off your back. And keep you safe during the time of transition, to just remove the machine in totality. One of the ways that we have done that is we actually have taken their little receptacles of consciousness. Some of those places would be like under Hoover Dam, under most of the major cities in the world. Together they form a grid, which actually does nothing but collect consciousness and spin it around into the machine's analytics, and then it comes at you with a counteraction. That counteraction could be a person around you. It could be very simply you're trying to get to work on time and it creates a car accident in front of you. The people in the car don't know why they got into an accident. They don't know what happened and how they pushed the gas pedal or how they didn't push the gas pedal. They have no idea at all of why they just did that. The clerk at the grocery store has no idea why they just yelled at you for not having the right change, or perhaps not being able to work the machine properly. They have no idea. You also have no idea why you convinced yourself, things are, I can't do this today. I'm so tired today. All of a sudden you get a random cold today. All of a sudden someone becomes sick in your family, or changing of events is just those days when everything seems to go wrong. That's because you're so close to being so right. So Little bit of conundrum they're in right now because lack of financing on their part decreases their ability to loosh from you, which then decreases their ability to create new worlds. You see, when a map fails or a reality fails, the matrix reboots itself, just like it was supposed to on the 31st of December. And it didn't happen. There was no rebooting. They always think that on a day ending in Y, the moon aligns and the sun and the Uranus happens and all of these things, and there's a definitive reason for that. But they always think that this is going to help them in some way, shape, or form. They have several times moved us all back in time. They've done a lot of different things to us, whether you know it or you don't know it. It doesn't necessarily mean that, you're now 20 years old when yesterday you were 50. It just means that they're changing time on the planet itself, and at the same time within your person to some degree, so that they can buy themselves more quote unquote time in 0 hour. As the consciousness speeds up, as your connection to the source becomes stronger, you are able to bypass this machine. Just because in your mind you have no choice. How many times have you said that? I have no choice but to do this or but to do that. But you do have choice. When I was in my younger years, and I worked for a bank, they sent me to a 2-week course. And during that 2-week course, they taught me a lot about sales. And in the sales course, they were trying to get us to sell more bank products to each individual customer. That was the goal. That's why they sent me. We offered annuities, we offered investment portfolios, IRAs, checking, savings, all the normal stuff you would expect to see at a bank. So they told me to make a chart. And in the chart, there would be product list A. You could call it the premium package, the gold package, the platinum package, the special people package. Didn't really matter what you called it, but it was package A in the chart. And they told us to list pretty much most of the bank's products, but a minimum of 5 to 10 different products in that list. Of course, they would get cheaper rates on, there would be benefits to picking package A, like lower rates on a mortgage, lower rates in a car loan, special processing and all of these types of things. And, we didn't have a whole lot of things like we have today. We had ATM cards and stuff. This is when dinosaurs roamed the earth, so bear in mind. So, package B would be slightly lighter. It would be a few products less, would still offer some benefits, but not as many as product list A. I'm telling you this for a reason. Product list C would be smaller, some benefits, not quite as many. By the time you get to product list D, let's just say, and we were supposed to have a minimum of 4 lists on our package sheet, according to the instructor. And that would be like a checking account and a savings account. And there would be pretty much, other than maybe a little bit of interest you might earn on your savings, that's pretty much your only benefit. You get an ATM card, 24-hour access to your money, all of these things were selling points, at the time, lower fees, maybe a few things here and there, but not much to offer. And you'd lay the sheet out in front of the customer. You would explain all the products and their benefits and that kind of thing. And you would ask them which one they would like to choose. 95% of the people chose one of those packages. 5% or less would actually just say, no, I don't want any of these. Some people, the more choices they felt they were given, they would feel confused. They would have to think about it. So you were supposed to limit it to these 4 choices. Now, if you gave people 2 choices, package A or package B, that's it. That's all you were offering. you're going to decrease that number from 95% to the high 80s. At least that's what they told us in our class. But isn't it interesting how people make choices and decisions? Very few people actually say, no, I don't want any of these. Or I don't want any of these. I will take just a checking account. That's what I came in here for. That's what I want to leave here with. And in this case, this is the best scenario I can give you to help you understand your power of choice. Even in movies like The Matrix, they give Neo choices. I can't remember. I haven't watched many of the later movies, but, I've had people tell me about them and watch little clips here and there just to kind of understand, what they're trying to tell you in these movies, because everybody analyzes those movies and there's some truth in those things. But, they tell you, even Neo in the movie, they give him the power. There's a scene, and you can look up the clip on YouTube where it says, Neo meets the architect. And the architect tells him all the advantages to his two choices and the disadvantages of his two choices. And because the machine is the machine, once it leaves the thought, quote unquote, leaves your consciousness and enters out into your brain waves, the machine and the architect can now read your mind. They can see you calculating over and over and over again which is the best choice. Choice A or choice B. I think it was to save all the people he loves or go back to the source code of the machine, which is what I want everybody to do. Go back to the source code of the machine and everybody dies. Eventually, I think, if I remember correctly, he chooses to go back and save everybody because he figures that, he can find a way out. The architect lied to him. Absolutely 100% lied to him out of preservation for himself and the machine itself. Because in that moment, in that place, there was a third choice that wasn't being offered. Take the seat. Take the architect's seat. Kill the architect. Take the seat. Why not? I mean, Neo spends the whole movies fighting and killing everybody. So why not? Why didn't he kill the architect and take the seat? See, next time you're faced with a choice or a decision and you're being heavily influenced even by your own self to make a choice or a decision, stop for a minute and think. Are these my thoughts of self-doubt? Is this the machine giving me self-doubt? Am I making a choice that is actually from my consciousness and my choice? Because if you really truly listen to your consciousness, the answer will come. You are more resourceful than you know. We are still alive. We're still here. Choose the unthinkable. Think of something different. Think differently. Now you know how to connect to your consciousness. Also can happen artificially when you get your adrenaline pumping at places like the gym or going for a bike ride. Usually people hit that adrenaline pumping point somewhere around 20 minutes in. Some people it's faster, 5-10 minutes in. Find another way to get your adrenaline pumping and you'll connect to that consciousness in rapid fire. But you have to be conscious. That's funny. You have to be cognizant. You have to really understand what you're doing when you're going to do it. I'm not saying to set yourself on fire or anything, but any activity that gets your adrenaline pumping a little bit. It will help you to connect to your consciousness, but really truly think about it the next time you do. Whether it's going for a brisk walk and listening to some music and really getting that pumping, doing something fun and exciting, you can do it. You can override the machine, connect to your consciousness, and all the answers will come. It's crazy how easy it is. you can actually convince your body through your consciousness that your adrenaline is not pumping. I've actually done this before myself, and then it kind of became a practice for a while there when I was running around like Mata Hari with my head, butt on fire, so to speak. But I was actually at the gym one day, and I started learning how to do this. So I'm going on the elliptical, and I'm going at a pretty fast rate. And normally at this rate that I was going, my heart rate would be somewhere around 140 to 150. At the age I was at the time, and that's pretty normal. For how fast I was going. And I actually used that adrenaline that was pumping. The same one that makes you breathe real heavy, the same one that makes you pant, when you're working out and you think just, gee, I'm out of shape. But you can actually take that adrenaline that is being pushed throughout your body and slow it down. You can use your consciousness to do that. When you do these things and you can achieve balance, it will help you tremendously until this is over. And hopefully that day will be very, very soon. But that day, I managed to get my heart rate down to about 60 while still going at the same speed on the elliptical. And I think I've told some of you this story before, and forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but it's actually kind of important right now. Because this is how you can override the matrix. This is how you override your perception of things. It will undistort things for you and make you think more clearly. So, that being said, I'm going to kind of get into the things you're going to be overriding when you figure out how to do this. Number one, we live in an inversion. Our world is inverted. That means, for all intents and purposes, everything in the world moves backwards. And you're going to be like, wait a minute, cars around me aren't going backwards. Nobody's going backwards. Nothing is going backwards. But remember, you see things in your world that are a reflection of light. Everything in this world is a reflection of light only. I can distort that light and make you believe anything you see. Not that I do that, but they did it. This is where the inversion comes in. They have moved us forward and backward in time, many, many, many times. But by inversion, this comes into the process of why it's so difficult to manifest. The flow of things is incorrect. The vibration of the planet is incorrect. The quote-unquote Schumann resonance is incorrect. The extremely low frequencies are incorrect. High frequencies are incorrect. You ever notice that sometimes when you come up with the most creative ideas, I know every time I do this GIA report, frequencies are just off the charts. Like I can barely hear myself think and have to stop sometimes because they come at me so hard. But understanding inversion makes you believe certain things that are not real. For example, in an inverted world, life automatically equals death. They say there's only two constants in this world. That's life and death, birth and death. There's only two things that are certain, taxes and death. Well, that's only because we live in an inverted world. We do not live in a world of creation. We live in a world of decay. Pretty much all of creation for a long, long time has been filtered into a machine. That machine creates our world and our matrix, our perception. It analyzes us. It feeds the deep state debt to pass on to you. We have exceeded the debt ratio to people ratio. Hence the reason why they're trying to push forward with the depopulation agendas and all kinds of things, because they can't control you. Your creation is slipping through the cracks. It's still being conducted by you in ways it shouldn't be. And you're actually retaining more of your power than you ever did before. The machine is slipping. So much so, about a week ago or so, they tried to pull us into a void. A void isn't the same type of void you think of when you think of a black hole or the nothingness. No. A void is a type of vector. In a void, they can have more control and the machine can actually reset itself. That's what they think. They were actually trying to create that void from this very location that I'm sitting in. You know, some people just want what they want, and they're willing to do anything to get it. They could care less if we live or die, made it or didn't make it, and all that kind of thing. But, you know, that's these people. But first, let's try to talk about, and I'm only on page 3 of my 20-page notes here, so this is going to go on for a little while. Okay, so first let's talk about the creators of the machine and how the machine was actually created in the first place. There's a guy we know of as Archimedes. Archimedes is known as the architect of the machine. He didn't create all aspects of the machine, but he is the architect of the machine, meaning his consciousness is the most important thing that created the machine. He is also the creator of time. He was also the creator of time travel, using mechanisms that were previously used by people for the good. He found a way to create something called entropy, which I'll explain further, using light. You know, there were many guardians that were Homo sapiens of this planet over the years, and even before the creation of the Matrix, when we lived in reality and we guarded with our lives, literally, but in many ways, we were here because we were guarding gateways of Source. We were guarding the precious gifts of Source. All of the gifts that give us life. We viewed the spark of life itself that exists within your person, the essence of Source, the breath of life that exists within your person as the most precious thing that could exist. And we ensured to carry out those instructions that were given to us by it and by the consciousness of Source itself. We knew how nature worked. We knew how to live in perfect harmony. And this guy comes along and he decides he'd like to control some of that. He created a machine called the Antikythera machine, spelled Kythera. Sometimes it's spelled with a C. This Kythera is also an island in Greece, and it is known as the Island of Love, and allegedly the home of Aphrodite. Hence the anti in the Kythera here, which means anti-love or an inversion network. He inverted the current and created time. Did he know that's what he was doing at the time? Probably. So we, as Homo sapiens at the time that this happened, we had 5 books of natural law that were distributed through varying people on this planet, Homo sapiens, actually people. We understood these natural books of natural law, and we could read them because they were written in essence. aka light language. We understood it very well. We understood the natural alchemy of source. We understood how nature goes together, and we understood how to restore harmony just in case the vibration of the planet was off. There was an alignment that caused a disturbance. We knew exactly how to set the rights to the wrongs. This was our job as Homo sapiens on this planet. And I know a lot of you continue to try to understand those instructions and try to restore nature the best way you can. A lot of you spend time in nature. When things get rough, we ground to the earth. We do a lot of different things to still try and do our best for source every day. And not only source, that means we're doing the best for each other too, because we were created in his image. Most of these books were stolen, and one of them was stolen by this lovely gentleman we know as Archimedes. Therefore, because he was actually a Homo sapien, he could actually read part of the book. So he creates this really strange and funky machine, and then understood that he could control the current, and he could move forward and backward in quote-unquote reality, picking up all these scientists one by one and offering them immortality for their service to prove science is better and stronger than God. So he created the first Antikythera machine from what you call a single grain of sand or dust. So I'm going to show you a couple of clips from a movie. It's called the Lara Croft movie. It's the first one in the series of a few. It's probably at least a couple decades old now. And I want to show you this machine for a reason. And there are clues within this movie, and we're going to play a couple of different clips, I think, back to back. I think there's about 3 of them back to back here that are key parts of this movie, just so you can understand, hopefully, what I'm going to continue to say to you, probably for the next 3 or 4 hours. So here we go. To see the world in a grain of sand. Well, this is dust. The pure essence of creation. The all that is of source, contained in a grain of sand. Now, the pure essence of source and dust contains the blueprint for just about everything, but not quite. You see, his machine could read the blueprint of creation, because that's what dust is designed to do. In Source's perfect way, he created dust. In the words of the Bible, Adam was created from dust. Atoms as well are created from dust. But the one bit of information they couldn't get, and the machine could never get out of dust, is how the essence itself was created. They never could figure out how to create the essence. Therefore, they've been stuck for millions and millions of years trying to create dust. There's that lovely frequency. You can try to stop me all you want, people, but it's not going to help you any. You can't do it. You cannot create the dust and the essence itself of source. Can't be done. They've been trying for millions and millions of years. All from this little place we call 0 hour or 0 point. You see, because in quantum physics, 2 things can't exist in the same place at the same time. Therefore, the dust itself, if it was creating itself at the same time in the same place, it would have annihilated itself. It's the same reason when these Nazi freaks from the SSP recreate themselves. They can clone themselves 1,000,000 times. They can travel their future selves to their former selves, but they cannot exist in the same place at the same time. They will annihilate themselves. This little particle here might have given them a lot of information. It might have given them the blueprint for love for which to create time. But it did not teach them how to create itself, because it can't. In quantum physics, that is an impossibility. You can create all kinds of overlays and all kinds of things that they have done, but they cannot teach. The dust itself cannot teach you how to create itself. It's a little conundrum and a little problem they have. So the architect basically created the machine to create the blueprint for creation. You know, with it, in the movie, they say you can control time. And this was the ultimate goal of the people that were standing in that room, because they wanted to learn. They wanted to not learn. They wanted to control time. This machine not only exists, the one that they went to in the movie is a place called Ark-Aim in Russia. You can look it up. It was a city of light. So the people there were, let's just say, keepers or protectors of the light of source. The first machine that was ever created like this was actually under the Aegean Sea. Under the Aegean Sea, they built a whole factory around this machine, which was designed to create a consciousness blueprint for all of creation. It pumps out a little something, or used to pump out a little something called black goo. The goo became the consciousness for the machine, for the matrix itself. Still not dust, and still not having the understanding of how to create the spark of life. But it served the architect of the machine well for a very long time. The next line in the little note that she read out there was, "And heaven in a flower." They understood that the flower and the flower of life pattern created an inversion. This is a part of alchemy. They actually, because of the inversion, which they created eventually over the spark of life itself, or what is referred to often as the flower of life, they created death, decay. They can't do anything but overlay it and invert it to meet their needs. Upon death, you used to go into this little other world we call the incarnation wheel, or the incarnation cycle. And during the time that you are there, your spark of life, just like it is while you are here, was quantumly entangled to the machine and imprisoned in a certain way to prevent us from connecting to source. But we still can do it. That really makes them mad. We still were able to, and so was Earth at the time, still able to override and still create. They had to figure out another way. The next thing she says, to hold infinity in the palm of your hand. You know, they showed you things like what a time storm looks like. And they say that you can't fly over this place because it's a dead zone. Meaning no electronics works, nothing works, energy's not working properly. Because your energy comes from a different place, everybody's able to stand near their machine and exist. Now, he thought a little compilation of metals and other materials that made up that triangle around there, then created the key to the machine. It surrounded the dust. And he sought out a little help. Talk about that in a bit here. That's where the other players in the game come in. An eternity in an hour. You've heard of things like frozen in time, time is of the essence. Well, if we lived in the wholeness of Source, and we will again, with no inversion, if we live in the essence of Source, that means we live in the breath of Source. We live in the wholeness of Source. There is no time. And the only current that exists is love, which is also a quantum physics equation, probably a story for another day. In the world of science, they call this thing the Rydberg constant. Atomic physics, kind of 101. You can, if you're so inclined and you're interested in learning it, you can look up things like the Rydberg constant and a little lesson in entropy, but that's going to be kind of way over everybody's head, and that would make this report even longer. So, Archimedes found that his consciousness could control current. His consciousness could create and destroy. And with his new invention, time, he could live into perpetuity in that 0 hour. A place where there is no current, and he became then an immortal. He traveled back and forward in time looking for other scientists and other people to prove his theory and assist with the creation of the machine. The machine gets better and better the more more people he collected to create his perfect world so that he could become a god. Crazy people. So, in order to create this compilation of metals and other things and figure out how he could best read the machine, create the goo that became the consciousness of the machine, he needed an alchemist. And an alchemist is someone that can, well, use nature in a positive way and create. Or it can be used in a negative way and it can destroy. He needed someone that knew the laws of nature well enough to override nature itself, and he needed to change the language of the essence, to change nature, to change the blueprint. Pythagoras was one of the choices. Pythagoras believed the entire universe could be created using mathematical equations. Let's call him the algorithm creator. He converted the language of essence and consciousness to a computational mathematical equation and various mathematical equations so that the language could actually be utilized in an artificial way. He also recruited the help of Germain the alchemist. This person is almost a mystery in our history. Some people call him Saint Germain. Some people call him Germain the Alchemist. But Germain the Alchemist also became an immortal, placing a spark of life, just like Archimedes did, in order to help create the machine. Germain the Alchemist was actually known in our history to be immortal. There were many sightings of him after his alleged death. He required varying metals and things we hear there about, such as like the black goo, as an example. So he became the alchemist in the equation here, and the second major factor in the creation of the machine. Whereas the algorithm, the mathematician, the Pythagoras person, actually was able to utilize that language in a different way, therefore creating alchemy completely and totally without nature, because that was his job. So the alchemist went along and created all of these different metals and all of these keys for the machine and things that you've seen, little bits of in the movie. But now you can understand why certain metals on the planet are so precious to these people, rare earth minerals. There are places where they occur naturally, such as Silverton, Colorado, such as the Democratic Republic of Congo. China has been working very hard, actually, to try to stake a claim in all the rare earth minerals in the world. And so has the U.S. for a long, long time, and it's been the charge of the CIA and many other agencies for forever. Gold is also important in alchemy, but they needed to change the gold. And the gold needed to be inverted, to be utilized by the machine in an inverted world, to create an inverted world. So, briefly, the main base colors of alchemy, which symbolize different phases of transition or transformation, are black, which is one of the empires, or death; white, purification; yellow, which introduces the quote-unquote spirit; and red signifies unity. And you could call red the color of the Philosopher's Stone. You can also call red the color that eventually became the Inferno. We call it hell. The Inferno, just like all infernos, create a lot of heat. This has actually changed the way the central sun of Earth functioned. Eventually, this also created stars. Eventually, it also created artificial constellations. Eventually, it created various sparks of life everywhere, artificially, because they cannot control and fully understand how to create an actual spark of life. The alchemist was actually able to transform natural gold of Earth and the natural veins of gold in Earth into a different form of monatomic dust, where the central sun of Earth once served humanity and itself as a conductor of the soul, the spark of life itself, the essence of source, pure essence. That is what gold does. It conducts the source itself in its natural form. Through varying types of alchemy, it became black gold, yellow gold, red gold, and white gold. These things together are the base root for your financial system. They are not conductors any longer of the source essence, but of the machine's essence. Again, another inversion. Next player in the game, well, they still need humans, or Homo sapiens in this case. What are we going to do with these people? I'm sure they were saying. So in walks Aristotle. He was another person they collected. This is almost, if you are old enough to remember this movie, remember it's Bill and Ted's Great Adventure, where they go back and forward in time in their little time machine and they start collecting all of these various people throughout history. That's kind of what this guy actually did. It's pretty funny. If you remember that movie. Not a very good movie, but anyway, nonetheless, funny. Okay, so Aristotle was known for his understanding of logic, deductive reasoning, politics, ethics, classifications of varying fields. And still, since they had a problem with Homo sapiens, he was the logical choice because they could now bypass free will and choice. His job was to limit the choices of creating, connecting, that normally would connect your consciousness to your mind, to get your neurons firing in the right direction of creation, spinning in the right direction, in a perfect quantum entanglement with source. And he would limit your choices and influence your choices. Remember the movie? Take a red pill or a blue pill. There's no other pills. There are no other options. For us, it's you got to go left or you got to go right. There is no other option. He spent a lot of time in 0 Hour as one of the immortals, donating his spark of life to the machine. But he spent a lot of time analyzing human behavior, Homo sapien behavior, and deducing everything into a mathematical equation. Those mathematical equations would then create a causal effect. Even the causal plane as we know it, and we've discussed in the past. So he would create influence, which would then influence your decisions. So you would make choices not to continue something, to change course. Maybe that loan didn't come through. Maybe you could not find a solution to save your company. Maybe you didn't create that piece of art in the park like you planned because it rained that day. Because maybe that piece of art would have created a ripple throughout history and you would have been the next Picasso. We don't know. But influencing within the system, the choices and decisions, which are oftentimes at points in your day or points in your life when your intuition tells you to do something and you override it with, I can't do that. That would make me crazy. That is the craziest decision. I have a family to raise. I can't go do my passion. No way. And if you decide that you're going to push forward anyway, the machine would throw every obstacle in its way just to change your particular path. Because creating outside the machine's will is not permitted. And believe you me, I have felt the pain of that machine. I've had the power go out. I've had all kinds of different things happen, specifically coming from that machine. He also created current control systems, which is the current of creation itself, creating something called the time arrow, which is a term used in quantum physics, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But he created the time arrow. He used space vectors and time vectors, thus controlling the essence of source, ultimately creating another inversion. This inversion process also created something called microstates and macrostates of matter itself. Overlays on matter so that it could be manipulated easier without your influence. Remember, your telekinesis can control your own particles, but it's often overridden by the machine's version, a mathematical equation tied to something called a microstate in an inverted world. So the last of the four main powers of the machine was Asclepius. Asclepius eventually landed in the 0 hour of no time with the rest of them, along with another gentleman called Nicholas Flamel. These are people you can look up on the internet, at least to some degree. And these two gentlemen created the Philosopher's Stone. Asclepius was known for his ability to raise the dead. He was also known as the founder of modern medicine. What does that tell you? The Philosopher's Stone became the heart of the machine, first of all, and it replaced the heart of creation, which then ultimately birthed the machine. The heart of the machine's creation is known as the Philosopher's Stone. So the machine, the magnum opus, the great work and creation then was almost complete. So the alchemist created the structure required to invert the four omnis using the Philosopher's Stone. The four omnis are allegedly, in our texts, known as the powers of source. The Trinity, the three different sections here of the machine and their respective creators, were only part of the equation. So I'll get kind of more into this yet another inversion. The four omnis of source are known as its omnipotence, the all-powerful, the Ethereum, the never-ending source of Ethereum or ether. Omniscience, the all-knowing, the consciousness. The consciousness of source is all-knowing, all the time, in all ways, in all places. It's like they say you can't hide from source. Well, source is in part of your consciousness. So omnipresent, everywhere. The breath and the essence when living in the wholeness of source, not in the space of the machine or inverted breath. And omnibenevolence, or love, the current of harmony and rhythm of nature and the blueprint itself, also inverted. These were the four main powers of source, still lacking in the knowingness or the knowledge of how to actually recreate a spark of life. Much to their dismay, this is the conundrum they've been in for a very, very long time. I can't stress to you enough, this never worked. They can try to use me for it. They can try to use you for it. They can try to do all the things. But the particle itself will never tell you how to create itself. It's an impossibility in quantum physics. So all the deep state people listening to this can sit there and rack their brain. But the deep state people have been traveling forward and backward in time. All of the Nazi scientists, Project Paperclip, their Werner von Braun's, and all the people in the world of scientists that they've collected over the years to try to solve this conundrum, no one can figure it out. all of them donating their spark of life to the cause, but still not able to replicate it. They created a weird inverted version of it, which is why we have to live in an inverted world to have a matrix, but never the actual spark of life itself. Okay, so the Trinity was complete. The analyst, the architect, and the alchemist, making a triangle. In quantum systems, in quantum physics, these are known as vectors. In alchemy, they are known as inversions, and both are correct. To give you a little quote here, those who go in the ordinary sense give birth to human beings. Those who go backward find immortality. And that's the principle of reversal. Okay, so this part is going to be a little bit complicated, and I promise you this report isn't going to go on too much longer. I'm down to the last 4 or so pages of notes. So I'm going to kind of breeze through this part a little bit, and maybe one day we'll break these down a little further. But I'm going to do my best here, at least for today's purpose. So first, let's talk about vectors and reversals a little bit. So we're going to kind of compare, and we're going to do the whiteboard here for a minute here. We're going to kind of compare quantum physics to alchemy. More specifically, unnatural ways of utilizing nature and source to do things. You see, when you are actually working with the actual essence and spark of life, it comes with instructions. You don't have to tell the essence how to do what it does, but again, they didn't actually have that spark of life, so, they had to try to figure out a way to invert it. Really, it was a best effort and has been a best effort for millions and millions of years. This is how long this has been going on, where they've been trying to solve all of these conundrums that they have. Okay, in physics, we call it a delta. It's in equations, looks like a triangle like this here. And oftentimes this would signify a change, sometimes a change in state. It also can indicate a difference in a value. That value could mean a difference in a mass, a difference in an energetic or electromagnetics. It often indicates some kind of a difference. So now you can understand, you can look up all the values in quantum physics and try to get a better idea. Now, an upside down delta is called a vector, or sometimes an operator. You would call this almost like a causal or a cause to achieve an effect. So cause equals effect. In a natural world, these things don't necessarily always apply, because you can actually have an effect without necessarily a cause in a natural world in the wholeness of source. And you can actually have a change or a difference without something we call space. So the machine's version is space. And this one here would be called time in the machine's world. These two things together basically control change of state, meaning life or dead, alive or dead. It can also change positions of matter. It can change your perception of matter, of light. So light is what would change your perception. So sorry about that. Okay, so in alchemy, these symbols are usually represent something different, and oftentimes when they are inverted, they are the opposite. For example, if water is this, in some cases you could call water current. Oftentimes in natural alchemy, we would use things even artificially sometimes, like when you're trying to lab create something, and we would call it voltage and frequency. And the opposite of water is fire. You have earth, or in actual alchemy, looks like this. And then you have air, which looks like this. So you can see one is an inversion of the other one. Now, we're not talking about natural elements per se. We're talking about changing of a state or creating a difference, meaning something with more mass, less mass, something with additional electrons or excited electrons. Water flows very smoothly, and it's almost harmonic, and it's very soothing to the ear when it's trickling. And, there's all kinds of people that, and I know I do it myself sometimes. I'll go sit by the river and, the water flow is very calm, soothing, and seems almost harmonic. Fire, on the other hand, is like total chaos, meaning you have many excited and charged electrons and quarks and preons, and they're all firing in different directions and bouncing off each other. Even if you look at nuclear fusion and fission, you can kind of see the difference between a natural flow and a chaotic state. Earth, or a dust per se, also has its natural state. When dust is being utilized to create things that are within the flow of nature, because the particle itself contains the spark of life, it is going in a harmonic frequency which feels good. Think of the power of creation when you're creating a child. When love is present between yourself and another person, as an example. It's not the only thing that can create a lot of love. We all love our pets. We love other certain things of a natural nature. A lot of us love our plants. We sing to our plants, and they grow. They grow better than your other plants that are in chaos. So you can see that changes of state basically are created by these triangles here in some ways and shapes or forms. So we do have, I think, a quick picture of the Philosopher's Stone. And I know, in movies and stuff, they make it out to be something kind of different. But this is kind of pretty much what it is. So in the Philosopher's Stone here, this is a method of inversion, is basically what this is. So you've got a trinity. We know we had the three different aspects of the machine that were created that formed the triangle in the first place and the Trinity. We also understand what those aspects were and what they did. So when you put them all together in a flow like it is, you create yourself a triangle or a delta. Now we know what the delta in this does. In the center here, you have a 0 or a 0 hour to some degree. You have encased in here millions of people that came before us and their spark of life connected to this, or directly in the center of this circle. The same goes for Earth herself. Because it is encased in a 0 hour, or you could say somewhat a constant here, it actually creates the opposite of flow. When something is not flowing, encased in a triangle like this, then encased in a second sphere, you actually you take water, which would normally be of source, and you create fire. So basically encased in the center of Earth, it looks like a burning inferno. You know, in science they call it magma. It's flowing lava and all of these crazy things. And, well, you know, in some cases you could say that there is, basically, because every single spark of life that has been thrown into the inferno becomes it is actually in a very chaotic state because of heat. It creates heat, nuclear fusion, fission, however you want to put it. It's not actually nuclear, but nonetheless, it creates a fission because these particles are bouncing off each other at a rapid rate in there. All of these sparks of life that they all donated in there to create this center circle there. The cube is actually a cube. It's not just a square, it's a cube. And the cube is actually a database of the machine. It's trying, the initial thought here was if you bang these things around long enough, you can break apart one of these particles and you'll try to figure out what makes it tick. The heart of source. That's what they're looking for. Well, since that hasn't worked in millions of years, I guess they're still trying to figure out a way to use it, make it till you, fake it till you make it, and that became the machine. So this is a database cube that sits around it. It basically mirrors and reads in less than zeptoseconds everything that all those particles spit out, hoping, at least at some point, that it will actually be able to read how to create an essence itself. Still not working. We got the triangle around. Now, the circle around the entire thing is actually a grid that was created on Earth. That grid is made of a bunch of isolated essence particles, taken either from yourself or from source itself or from others. And those are in a reverse spin. And because those particles are spinning they were anyway, spinning in a reverse motion, this actually creates a double vortex in source itself, because whatever happens to one piece of dust because of quantum entanglement, or one piece of essence because of quantum entanglement that they can't seem to break, it will happen to every particle, and they start moving in an inverted manner. So they created these multiple grids, multiple particles, which then further increases, based on this sphere on the outside there we call Earth that we live on. It further creates the inversion world that we've lived in, we know as the Matrix. So To understand this creation and these bouncing of particles all over the place and what that really means, it creates something called entropy, spelled Entropy. You can look this up on the internet too. There's little information. Now you're getting into quantum physics, Bill. But to kind of put it in layman's terms, entropy is a state when particles are in total chaos. There's just everywhere. There's no order to it. There's no flow to it in any way, shape, or form. So to kind of give you something you could relate to, if you went to a party and you were in a crowded room, and every person, say there's hundreds of people in this room, it's a big hall, you're in a banquet hall of some sort, and you had hundreds of people in this room, and everyone is singing a song. It's a different song, and everybody is singing that different song in a different key. So that is going to create hundreds, if not more, vibrations in this hall, which to you is going to feel like total energetic chaos. It's going to hurt your head. And I'm sure you've probably felt this in like a busy mall at Christmas time and, all kinds of places that you've been where you have to get out. It's just total energetic chaos. Loud rock concerts, that's another one. The vibrations are very different. So some people like that, some people don't. In another instance, if you have a clean room feels very calm. It feels very orderly. It actually helps you sleep better. It helps you perform functions in your home better. Your family is just a little bit better. Nothing is in total chaos. Perhaps this actually calms your kids and the people that visit your home by having a very calm, clean room. Some people call it feng shui. Everything is in a proper place and in order within your house, and then therefore you feel calm as well. Now, a dirty room full of clutter, dirt, dust, you name it, the toys are everywhere, stuff is everywhere, all over the place. It feels very chaotic. Therefore, you feel very chaotic. It stimulates your vagus nerves. Your kids are crying. Everybody's running all over the place. Your guests feel off. They can't wait to leave, and it's not just because there's dirt on the floor. It's actually because it creates chaos. So chaos actually creates the ability for something called time arrows to start changing the direction of essence and light. So at various levels of artificial energy, vibrations or rates, meaning velocity, how quickly they bang off each other, and also with different speeds based on the amount of energy that is coming at those particles, which is, you could call it, it's different ways of creating velocity and speed, not just kinetic energy, but that's one of them. Like balls banging together on a pool table, for example, and then sending that ball into, if you hit it just right off to the side, then it's going to go in a completely opposite direction. So that actually is the job of time arrows. So when love is present in your life, it's called a state of low entropy or very low chaos. You feel at peace. It's the reason why we have animals in our life. It's the reason why we enjoy relationships with other people, because we are at a very low entropy state. The particles in our body are not bouncing in all the wrong ways, and we feel at peace. We feel good. We feel good, much, much better than we feel in that room with hundreds of people singing hundreds of different songs and hundreds of different keys, creating total chaos. You actually feel good. The same thing happens to you when you give yourself a little self-love too, self-care. Maybe for you, that's a long bath, a long warm bath with some nice music and some nice lighting, maybe candles and that type of thing, or maybe it's a dip in the ocean. Maybe it's working out. Maybe you enjoy going to the gym and doing a little self-care. Maybe it's a trip to the spa. Whatever that is for you, even self-love can create low entropy, therefore no chaos. Everything starts to flow in the right direction. Now, you are creating yourself to be in a state, whether you know it or not, to be in harmony with the spark of creation, with the natural, all of your little sparks of creation that exist in every atom and quark and prion in your body, every piece of matter, every cell. Everything starts singing to that same song of the spark of life. It actually is a way that you bypass the machine, even for moments in time. So this is another thing to understand about the machine. The machine works very, very, very hard to create constant, what we call a high entropy state. Hence the inferno of death there that they created out of the center of Earth, nearly every planet, and also your person, because it's mirrored to you as well. Now, time's influence on these particles, because they're just all over the place, actually allows for inversion and even time inversion and movement of waves of light and essence and everything to go into to move in a different way, allowing frequency to create a different ordering. So I think we have a picture here of what time arrows kind of do and how inversion or the reverse trajectory works versus a forward trajectory and how that works. Now, this is getting a little bit touchy on quantum physics, which I'm trying really hard not to do, but trying to explain it in such a way that you'll understand. So each one of these lines here in the middle, in theory, is a series of electrons and photons, and some are all electrons and some are photons and some are other types of particulate matter. It could be atoms, it could be larger, smaller. Either way, you're kind of getting the picture here. So by creating this wavy line and in some cases, no line at all, you now got a bunch of you introduce these time arrows into this equation here, and you can see the time arrows are actually changing the flow. So what is natural of source, a natural flow of water or love or current, ends up going all over the place. It can actually even reverse the direction. So if you look at these lines and you'll see these little arrows here going up in one way and down in another way, inversion actually moves things from the past. Remember, in a previous, the past is creating the future in an inversion. Actually, you can kind of look at it in both ways. They can actually do it in both ways. But the point is that your memories, remember I told you the machine works off of your memories. So you have existed in the past. You've existed in the past history. You've also existed in the future. And you're coexisting in both. These people like to live in what's called T0 here. So, or the 0 hour or time zero. They never move into the past. They never move into the future. Now, when we are in a natural source state, meaning we are completely in the wholeness of source, essence, and breath, we don't have any of these arrows. We don't have any of these movements going in weird ways because the flow is conducted of love. That's the same feeling that you feel when you are you are loving someone else is loving you, you are you don't feel so chaotic, and these things moving all around you here, I mean, even just looking at this picture kind of creates a little bit of chaos in your mind. What is this and how does this work and why do I need to understand it? But bottom line is time actually is able to exist and be controlled because of a high state of entropy, meaning particles are bouncing off each other at such a rapid rate. Now, this artificial creation that happens in the center of Earth creates what you call fractionated materials. So it does manage to fractionate light and create varying colors that we see in our world. Now, in all other worlds that they have created, some of them are black, completely black. Some of them are white. Some of them are blue. Some of them are purple. Some of them are green. And each one of these fractionated particles of light are moved around by time. So that's kind of like a brief version of the first part of what the machine actually does and what these people actually created and why they created it. Now, we got another little piece I want to talk about briefly, and I'm going to wrap up this report. It's been quite a long report, I know. Okay. I want to talk about something called the string theory. This is also something that you can look up online. The string theory basically, in a short form, sorry, been talking for a long time here, essentially means that energy strings exist. And those energy strings, strings are straight, sometimes curvy, as you can see here, are made up of electrons, quarks, gravitons, preons, photons, etc., etc. Now, by influencing these strings, they are influenced by things that are called operators or causes, right? And an example of causes would be vibrations or changes in frequency. So another thing that is very important to the machine is they will try to change vibrations and frequencies. They say that, this lowers my vibration. Well, okay, yes, they're sending you a very low frequency, trying to reorder things into a proper string that they can control, even invert it. If these strings are coming out of the center of Earth, as an example, which they do, strings in an orderly fashion, they can actually create what you call a matrix grid or a space-time grid. Now, the waves that exist within that grid, when it moves all around, because in the squares, in the corners of the squares, you would have your space-time continuums. The lines between them look like light, but they also look like light arrows, which have to flow in a certain direction. Do they actually look like little tiny arrows? Well, kinda yes and kinda no. Only from the standpoint is they typically contain a delta, which looks like an arrowhead, kind of in a way, and they also contain light, almost like fast-moving lasers. So the fast-moving lasers tell the particles which direction they are going to move in a grid-like, string-like fashion. So this is why what we see and what we feel isn't necessarily normal. So if you were to look at the world in a quantum way, you would see these strange grids and triangles and, rectangles and triangles and lines of light going in varying directions at a very rapid rate, typically about twice the speed, light to the light to the second power. There you go. But if there was no actual manipulation at that point in time, which there always is, they love manipulation, these things would almost look like a harp. So you want to know where harp, H-A-R-P, came from? There you go. They can actually manipulate the particulate matter in our environment and in our atmosphere to create weather. But they can also create bad weather within yourself. They can create bad weather within the materium world itself. Now, most of the time, these particles, albeit them very small and moving very fast, are further influenced by what we call a microstate, which means that they have if the particle is round, which most of them are, they have a round sphere, which is of light typically, and photons, which isn't necessarily round. It can be quite a little bit of elliptical, let's say. And those microstates around each piece of a particle allow it to change the language of that particle. Now imagine how many of these little particles make up your cells, your matter of your body. Changing the language or inverting the natural language of creation, which then inverts the spark of life, creating what you call decay and death. That's why we get older. So there are many things that they do with this, including lots of epigenetics and genetics programs being run by a bunch of crazy semi-human, semi-homo sapiens cyborgs we call the Black Sun, and we also call the Merovingians, or the Order of the Dragon. Now, they also serve another purpose as well. You know, they ensure that gates open when they're supposed to open, close when they're supposed to close, and some of them also have been granted their own, what you call, realms in which they exist, in which they hail from. Those realms are often of varying colors that look much like the chart of the planes of existence that I sent out to you quite a while ago, and they may hail from the blue world or the purple world, where all matter is blue and all, and all light is blue. One of such blue worlds, so to speak, exists around our world as well. It is created of varying elements. Some of them you can find on the periodic table, and some of them you can't. The reflection of light is important. It changes your perception. How you perceive the light that is constantly being manipulated by these microstates, which, by the way, used to pump out also down the street here in a town called Ure. They used to pump out microstates like crazy, and those microstates would envelop every particle that tried to even remotely come out of you or the central sun. So this is just another factor, and just kind of something, if you want to look a little further into it, it'll give you a general idea. So just to recap real quick, natural harmonics of essence and light do not act in this way. They do not act in a string-like fashion. They flow like water. They are all organized by telekinesis. They communicate with one another, not only in your person, but also throughout nature. Heat created by the quote-unquote inferno causes the disturbance, entropy, a very high state of entropy. Just think of Earth and all of the particles that make up our atmosphere, and yourself and everything around us being in a constant state of quote-unquote chaos. Think about yourself in that room with hundreds of people who can't sing, probably lots of Kims, because I can't sing, all singing at a different key, a different song, all at the same time. It just feels like total chaos. Hence the reason why they created the center of what you call the Philosopher's Stone. It's not some rock in some guy's basement somewhere. It actually looks just like that photo that I showed you. So the other thing I want to point out that heat does is I'm going to talk to you about yourself again, so that you can have something to compare it to, so you can possibly understand what I'm saying to you. So have you ever been in a really hot room, spent too much time in the sun? If you're in a really hot room, let's just say, probably over 120 degrees, 125 degrees, something like that, just a really, really hot place. After a while, you start to become a little bit confused. You're having trouble putting together your thoughts. You're having trouble communicating with one another. You're sweating. There are other ways that they can create this experience. In a room where the oxygen is decreasing is another one. Varying people that fly very fast jets. The G-force eventually causes a similar type effect. It's a different kind of force on your person, where you have had pilots pass out. That's the reason why, when you start hitting like G5, that type of thing, you'll start kind of dozing off, feeling confused, not being able to function. They actually train fighter pilots to avoid this untenuous situation when they are in the military. But you become confused. So one is done by force. The other one here, on the other hand, is caused by heat. But both of them actually can't even, and in either one of these environments, your neurons stop firing properly. So you're trying to use the control systems in the jet, or you're trying to function in this really hot room. People become very agitated and irritated, and just like you do in that other room, it still creates high entropy, so to speak. But I want you to relate this a little bit to your spark of life, and just for a second here. So when you take a particle and you put it in these extreme situations, and in quantum physics there are many ways of creating extreme situations of this nature, it starts to lose it loses its consciousness, it loses its instruction set. So it's another reason why they like to create very high entropy, in many different ways in alchemy, because they want it to lose the spark of life instruction set. They would also like you to lose it. They do not want you to have your consciousness connect. Hence another reason why we are all in total chaos all the time. Wars all the time. Same channel, same different day in our world. So these are just a few things that make up the magnum opus. There are many, many more. This report would be about 40 hours long, and I can't do that, not to you. I'm sure you're probably all tired of listening to me already. So the machine will not last and live forever. It is going to die. Remember the choices that Neo had to make in the movie. There are other choices to make. And I can't really say much more than that at the moment. But there are other choices to make. But the one thing that they have not done in millions, if not billions of years of traveling all the way back to the beginning of creation, rerouting things, rerouting the heart of source. The first Philosopher's Stone, by the way, ever created wasn't actually... You could say it was created in Earth first, basically because of what Earth is. Redirecting the current of source. Redirecting the heart of source to a place we call Sirius. There's a hunter there with an arrow. you can kind of start to do a little bit more of the math, and I'll probably go into that more in the next report as I'm just kind of running out of time here. But the entire mechanism has been discovered. We know where all the people were. We found the architect. We found the alchemist. We found all of the individuals that they had taken over the years to try to attach to the machine down the street and just outside of Cortez. We know it all. We know exactly how they do it. We know that there was a machine just like the one you saw in Siberia in the clip under Durango. We know where all the rest of them are too. We know how, in detail, in quantum physics terms, and comparing those terms to alchemy and analytics, exactly how the machine was created now. The incursion point is what actually occurred yesterday. Meaning, remember, I told you that matter, whether it is created artificially or naturally, the same particles, even though it goes forward and backward in time, and even though time exists, those two particles can never meet. They cannot exist in the same place at the same time because they will annihilate themselves. So that'll give you kind of a clue to some of the things that we've been working on for the last couple of weeks since I've been kind of quiet. That's a lot of information for one report, and I promise you if I gave it all to you, I don't know if you would even want to hear it because it's a lot of quantum physics and a lot of alchemy and a lot of figuring out the inner workings of this machine that has plagued us for a very, very, very long time, has created infinity loops, has put us into this terrible state of basically in concentration camps from Nazis that have tried to control our every move, and pharmaceutical companies and bloodline families and all of the things that you only know a small amount about based on what you can find on the internet. And as for what the governments are doing and all of those things, this is all part of the machine. It was part of the creation of the analysts because they decided that based on human behavior that we needed it. Trying different forms here and there, communism this and democracy that and socialism this and kingdoms that and tyrannies here and all kinds of different things to see which ones work best for control of the all, meaning all of us Homo sapiens. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to end the report because it's been a really long time and I've taken up enough of your time. And it's getting kind of late here now. And this is the second time I've done this in the last 2 days. So on that note, I hope this report was informative, and I will hopefully get out another report as soon as I possibly can. But we are well on our way to understanding the enemy. And once you understand your enemy, you can destroy it. Have a great day and the rest of your night, and I will talk to you again real soon.